was a Spanish Q&A for Oshinoko earlier this morning that came out. Aka and Mengo, the artist and author of Oshinoko, answered a bunch of different questions. And most of the questions, from what I could find out, seem to be the standard, stereotypical stuff you would see in a Q&A. Which is sad, because I don't know why when people are in these type of events, that they choose to ask the most boring questions instead of stuff that legitimately should be asked by the fandom to get really more insight into things. But anyways, there was one line of questions that really stood out that gave more expansion on some of the things that happened towards the end of the manga. And those questions were affiliated with Aqua X Ruby. Now, before I show those questions on screen and I really dive into those, we need to set the foundation on how we got here and what's been going on. It's been about a month since Oshinoko's manga came to a close, and I think it's become a very genuine, common consensus where most of the community seems to not like the ending of the manga. Now, obviously, there's probably going to be a separate few or a few here and there that, do like legitimately the ending of Oshinoko. And if you like the ending of Oshinoko, there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with those that looked at the ending and was like, this is incredible. But it's very clear that most of the manga community around the internet, not just, let's say, on Twitter, not just on Reddit, but around the internet collectively, did not like Oshinoko's manga ending. Now, regardless of why or why not or whatever's going on there, there's been a lot of discussion about its conclusion since it came to a close. And it's had a lot of people speculate if they should even sit down and watch the continuation of the anime after such a catastrophe of an ending for the manga. Now, personally, if you want my 2 cents on the matter, I don't think Oshinoko's ending is the worst ending of all time, but I would say out of everything I've read this year in terms of conclusion, Oshinoko is probably the worst. Hands down. I don't think there's even a comparison to be made with the other stuff that's in this year in comparison to Oshinoko's ending. It left me very dissatisfied, and I felt like I wasted my time. It felt like I wasted many, many years reading the series because of nothing was really given a proper conclusion. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent here. The point of the matter is there was something that happened earlier this year that spawned a lot of controversy. There was a lot of discussion around Oshinoko, and you obviously know what I'm going to be talking about because the title of the video is related to it. Aqua and Ruby potentially becoming a couple, a romantic couple at that. Now, it's very obvious if you know anything about Oshinoko why that is controversial. Aqua and Ruby are brother and sister. Maybe in their previous life they weren't, but they're brother and sister in their new life. And it was always apparent something with the relationship might pop up thanks to, Sarna, aka Ruby's original life, having some feelings for her sensei, the doctor. There was always a potential possibility. It was always there. But it was never really discussed until, obviously, the last arc of Oshinoko. And with this last summer, with Ruby finding out the true identity of Aqua, her brother, she instantly started to crush on him, fall for him, and want to theoretically be with him. It was very obvious what the manga was setting up. Now, let's be honest here. When it comes to these type of themes of siblings, step-siblings, and forbidden love, so to speak, being within manga and anime and light novels, it's been a thing for decades. It's not something that just happened with Oshinoko. If people think this is the first series to ever try to push those boundaries, look at, Yoshige no Sora. That is a good example of something that really likes to push the boundaries. And that's not the only example. What I'm trying to say is that Oshinoko definitely had something that was fundamentally not seen for a while now, especially in a mainline series that is very popular. Like, say whatever you want, Oshinoko is a popular product, a very popular manga, and a very popular anime. And so when we had hints that Aqua and Ruby were potentially about to become a thing, it led the entire community into a spiral of controversy. You had one side, obviously, enjoying the chaos, absolutely loving everything that's happening with the series when that was potentially being hinted at, and then you have the other half that was just downright upset. You had the Akane and Kana fans furious with the fact that Ruby potentially could get with Aqua, and then there was even more nuance to it because people obviously don't like the whole element of them being basically siblings within the manga. So when you factor all that in, it led to a lot of toxicity, a lot of people dropping the manga because of it. There's people potentially burning their manga. I believe there was a few that burnt the manga volumes. You obviously had death threats and hate and stuff slung at Mengo. There was a lot going on in that time period, and I remember the memes and everything was just insane. It was a hilarious time for the Oshinoko community, and in general, I was curious to see if Aka and Mengo would double down and really go down that path with the story. But obviously, with the conclusion of Oshinoko, that did not happen. It felt like, that very plot point within the manga was dropped very quickly. The series just did a complete turn left or right, and it completely forgot about that entire element of the story, and dived straight into the climax of the story, which gets into some of the issues that people had with the ending of Oshinoko. But I'm not here to rehash the stuff I've talked about. The point of the matter is that was a big time period for Oshinoko this year, and it was definitely one of the biggest points of the series recognition. Like, for instance, it was the talk of almost every community. That was, at least in the manga community, they became aware of the situation of Oshinoko, and everybody was talking about it in some shape or form. Now, with the groundwork laid out, we get into the Q&A. Now, the question that was indeed asked today was about that, in fact. What do you think about the criticism of the, incestuous relationship between Aqua and Ruby? Mengo, aka the illustrator, the artist of Oshinoko, responds, "Aka didn't let me, but I would have liked to do Aqua and Ruby's relationship." And later they asked him if they would do a spin-off later, and Mengo answers as if he were talking a little about Aka, "I'd like to make one if I could about Aqua and Ruby's relationship." Laughs. Invent Mengo. So, what it seems to me like is that there was definitely some creative difference around this past summer, and most likely into fall, with Aka and Mengo's overall thoughts of where Oshinoko currently is. Now, I'm not going to say I know the thought patterns and what really happened between these two different, creators for Oshinoko. I'm not them, and obviously they haven't publicly talked about every little detail of Oshinoko's conclusion and their thoughts and feelings on everything. But the point of the matter is that Mengo has went on record to say that they drew Oshinoko to the best of their abilities to the very end. They were solely focused on Oshinoko, and they wanted to really dedicate all their time into it. And I've talked about the controversy of Aka potentially already lining up work already before Oshinoko even came to an end, showcasing that the lack of priority that the manga of Oshinoko had for Aka, aka the writer of the series. But anyways, getting into the line of questioning here, apparently Mengo, at one point when the whole Ruby and Aqua stuff was happening, Mengo wanted to make Aqua and Ruby a thing, dive deeper into that. And it's very clear that that should have been an arc. Even if they didn't end up together, it should have had some form of dedicated arc, but it was pretty much rushed in about 2 to 3 chapters. It was kind of concluded. That entire element of the story, it felt like there definitely needed to be more time for it to actually cook before we really dived headfirst into the conclusion of the manga. And I think that it showcases there was a creative difference, that Aka did not want to do that. Aka didn't want to dive into that for whatever reason, and most likely either Aka really did envision the ending and wanted that ending of Oshinoko, or really wanted, let's say, Aqua to get with Kana or Akane at the ending and didn't want it necessarily to be Ruby. But there clearly was some form of creative differences. This line of questioning definitely hints at that. Now, we don't know necessarily if it was a joke or not, but it's clear that Mengo does technically want to do a spin-off manga of Aqua and Ruby. So, that's going to be fascinating. I'm legitimately curious if that will happen. But, yeah, it's pretty fascinating, honestly. For instance, we had a potential timeline to where if Aka would have accepted, we would have had Aka and Mengo writing an ending where Ruby and Aqua got together. Which is wild. I mean, looking at everything of the conclusion of Oshinoko, as much as that there probably would have been a different spew of problems with that ending as well, I do think it might have been infinitely better than what we got. Fascinating to think about. But, Yeah, Oshinoko, man. Who would have thought that that actually wasn't necessarily trying to be bait? But Mengo really tried to push for it and did want the story to go that direction. That's pretty funny. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Are you happy with how Oshinoko turned out? Are you upset with how it turned out? Be honest in the comments below. But I love you guys. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.